get things started, so we've got a really exciting panel today. Our topic is going to be acing your next job interview. So with me today, I have 4 panelists, and I'll do a brief introduction of each of them. I'll just, give their name, where they work, what they do, and once we get into the question portion of the panel, they'll be able to introduce themselves more in depth. So, all right. So brief intro of myself. My name is Carl Coffey. I'm a person who stutters. I always like to say that because for a long time it was a very hard thing for me to admit to. I am a co-leader of our WeStutter Work program that the NSA puts on. We offer a lot of career success resources. I'm sure we'll get into that over the course of the panel. But with me, I've got Nora Sadiq. Nora works as a water resources engineer for Jacobs Engineering. So everyone say hey to Nora. Next, we have Kelsey Smith. Kelsey's a park ranger for the National Park Service. We've also got Tanmor Dar. He's a graduate research assistant for the University of Minnesota. I believe he just got a new job, so I'm sure he'll talk to us about that a little bit more in depth. So I'm super excited to hear about that. And last but certainly not least, we've got Ariel Malman, and Ariel is a marketing coordinator for Racktop Systems. So these are going to be our 4 panelists for today, and we're super excited to get started. So in that order that we just did intros, I'm going to pitch out my first question to the panel. So I just want you guys to tell us a little bit about your current role. And in that, let us know what some of your day-to-day responsibilities are at work. So we'll go ahead and start with Nora to kick us off.
Thank you, Carl, for coordinating all this. As he said, I'm a water resources engineer, and to cover, I'm trying to think of how to cover everything. I would say I typically work on projects where our clients are water utilities, so cities or counties, and we'll help them kind of go through their water treatment process and design improvements. Typically what I've been working on in the last few years especially is on lead in drinking water. So helping utilities come up with an improvement to their treatment process to reduce the amount of lead that comes out of the lead pipes in people's homes. And that's kind of in parallel with helping them come up with a plan for taking all those pipes out over time. My day-to-day work changes a ton. I'm typically going out to project sites to collect water samples twice a week. I travel sometimes to go out to project sites, or I just am at home on my computer going through water quality data and putting together technical reports. The other component of my job is just that I'm an innovation program coordinator. So I work with our water technologists to come up with cool ideas for new projects, and I help them kind of go through that process of how do we incorporate this into our company services. So with that, I will hand it off. I think Kelsey, you were up next.
Okay. Hey guys. So as Carl said, I am a park ranger with the National Park Service, and I've been doing this career for the last 6.5 I've been doing this for the last about 6.5 years. Years on and off though, but anyways, so kind of so to kind of cover my responsibilities and my job in a very short and condensed version, I give tours and I give the and I give the programs. And so what I mean by giving tours and programs, I'm sure some of you guys have visited on the park service sites. Like some of the big ones are like Yellowstone, the Grand Canyon, a bunch of other places. And so anyways, I have worked at 6 different parks, and I have given tours and programs anywhere from just 2 people to I think like 480 people is the biggest program. And so yeah, and so that's kind of the condensed version, but I do like more than that. Like whenever if anybody like goes into a visitor center, we'll just use Yellowstone for example. I'll kind of be the one that's on the behind the like info the desk, handing out like info, telling people how to be safe hiking, and all of the kind of all of that stuff. And I'm actually currently unemployed right now, but my season, I'm beginning a new season at Theodore Roosevelt National Park in North Dakota. So I'm really looking forward to getting to know that park and give programs again. So I will hand it off to the next individual.
Thank you, Kelsey. I think it's me, right? I'm third. Okay, thanks, Carl. So I am Toton Madhar. I also a person with a stutter, and I'm currently active as a research assistant at the University of Minnesota at the Department of Electrical and Electronic Engineering. So as a part of the research assistant, my day-to-day job is to update on my research progress to my professors and my lab mates and the group that we collaborate with. So it's like we have to regularly be in touch with these people and an update on what's going on from my end and take update from their side. So it's like we have to be in touch on regular basis through over Zoom meeting and other stuff. And from my work perspective, it's mostly like I have to actually think a lot. That's the part of the job as a research assistant. I have professors usually will give you a problem and will suggest you to look into a problem, research problem. Then you have to spend time over it, and you have to find out how can you better explain the problem in mathematical terms so that the engineering people can understand. Then you have to also find out what's your suggestion to solve the problem, what should be the next step to counter this problem, things like this. So it depends on exactly the phase of the project I'm working on. So I want to reiterate, my tasks depends on the phase of the problem I'm working on. So yeah, I've been doing my philosophy of doctorate. It's for now 4 years now. So I'm at hopefully at the end of my doctorate degree. So actually Carl referred to getting a job. Actually, he meant that I recently applied for internships. As I am at the end of my degree, I'm looking for a job, and I recently applied for internships in numerous companies. And recently I got one. So I think we can discuss sometime later on if you are interested to know about it. Yeah. So that's all from me. I would like to pass the baton to the next person. Yeah.
Well, you guys all have really cool jobs. I'm Ariel Malman. I'm also a person who stutters. And I'm on the WeStutter at Work committee with Carl, who does a great job of co-hosting and planning all of the events like this one. So kudos to you, Carl. I work in marketing. I'm a marketing coordinator for a cybersecurity company, Racktop. They're in Columbia, Maryland, and I've been working for them since November of 2019. It's a really interesting job because it's a startup. I have gotten to experience many different kinds of projects that I probably wouldn't have gotten to work on if I was at a larger company. So I've worked on things relating to like events planning, to social media, to launching a whole partner portal for technology partners, to account-based marketing, and like all kinds of different things. So it can be a lot at times because our team is small, but we have a great team and it's just overall a great company. So I enjoy it a lot. And I've been working remotely since COVID came. So that's me.
Awesome. Thanks everyone for sharing a little bit of background and perspective about yourselves and what you do. I feel like the common theme in everyone's stories is that, you know, our work doesn't look the same every day, right? And I think that's been especially true because of COVID. We've all had to learn how to pivot and change. And I think that that skill is so important. So thanks everyone for sharing. So our next question, which I'm going to give people in the panel the opportunity to kind of jump in with your you know, thoughts as you'd like. But if you can think back to when you were on your job interview, whether it's for the job you have now or a previous role, did you disclose your stutter? And by disclose, I mean, when you were interviewing, did you let the interviewer or the recruiter or the hiring manager, did you come out and say, hey, I'm a person who stutters? And if you did, why did you do that? And if not, why did you decide not to do that? So I'll leave the floor open to a panelist to decide if they'd like to share.
I can go first. So I have to interview for every job within that I applied for within the park service. So I interview quite often, and every time I've given an interview, I've told them that I do have a stutter, and I tell them pretty much at the beginning. And the reason why is because I do have such like a public speaking job. I feel like if I didn't tell them like that, hey, this is kind of like the reason I'm stuttering. If I didn't like tell them, I feel like I wouldn't get the job, just because they wouldn't like they would think that I was like too nervous, or just like, well, why is she like trying to do this job, if that makes sense. So yeah, yes, I do every time. And I have found kind of over the years that telling my interviewers that I do have a stutter, that helps them and kind of puts them at ease, and just so that way they understand why it is I am talking the way that I am every time, and I have found kind of.
All right. I think we had some background noise, but I think we got it taken care of. All right.
I
Tanmoy, I
go.
think,
Yeah.
sure thing, go for it.
So first of all, I just wanted to mention all the listeners is you may think like, okay, he is fluent enough. Why he should not have any problem in the interviews? The thing is, right now I am able to control my stress, but in the interview sometimes it's a lot around that. So what happens is actually recently I attended a lot of interviews. So at the beginning of the interviews, at the first few ones, I stuttered a lot, and it was like, I mean, there is no option but to admit that you stutter, first of all. And then later I realized one thing: when I admit that I stutter, then it actually releases some of my stress. At least the speaking improves. So that's why I usually at the start of my interview, whenever I get my first stuck, I usually say that, guys, I stutter. So I hope you already understood, but uh, I usually mention that I stutter. And usually the common reaction is, okay, it's of the listeners is usually, it's fine, it's okay with us, you should go on. But I will not say that the the interviewer always accepts this as a neutral, but I think whoever if the interviewer doesn't take it as something if the interviewer takes it as a negative something, you should not be working for them. So the thing is, if you feel like it should help you to reveal that you have started, you should do it. So this is what I believe, and that's why I usually in the interview I usually reveal that I stutter.
Awesome. Thank you, Kelsey and Tanmoy. And I just want to touch on a point that Tanmoy just said, and he kind of said, if the interviewer, they don't like the fact that you stutter, then you shouldn't be working for them. And, that is a really interesting point. And that's something that took me a long time to learn. I think a lot of us, when we're interviewing, we get so excited, we get kind of nervous, we think, oh my gosh, I really want this job, I'm so excited. But just as much as that company or that person is interviewing us, we're also interviewing them. We want to make sure that if we're working for that company, if it's going to be a good fit for us, if it's going to be an environment that we're going to be successful in, that we flourish. And so I really want us to think of interviewing as being kind of like a two-way street, right? Like, we want to make sure that they like us and we put our best foot forward, but we also need to expect the same for them as well. Awesome. Thanks, guys, for sharing. My next question is going to be, is there anything special that you all do maybe when you're preparing for a job interview? And if so, like what types of things do you do to maybe get yourself in that right frame of mind or feel more comfortable going into the job interview? I'm going to pick on Ariel and ask her if she has any types of things that she may do.
Well, I haven't actually done a job interview in a while, and hopefully I won't have to do one more because I like my job, so I hope I can keep it. But when I interviewed for this job that I have now, I was already kind of comfortable mentioning my stutter in the interview because I had done a lot of mock interviews. I did them at my college. They offered them, but the NSA does mock interviews. The WeStutter at Work Team runs them, and they're great in practice. So I would definitely suggest taking advantage of those. And I also just kind of like tried not to be so like stiff about it, if that makes sense. Like I didn't want to have a script that I had to say. I wanted it to sound more organic when I tell people about my stutter in the job interview. So I just kind of think of a couple of different scenarios in my head on like how I might be able to work that in. For example, talking about like the expected hours you're supposed to work. That's when I mentioned, well, back when I had to go to the office, I mentioned that I commuted to College Park to go to speech therapy because I stutter. Other times when they talk about like communication in the workplace, I mentioned that like, you know, I have a stutter, so I like really do value good communication and I'm a great listener. Another idea is when they're talking about, or if they ask you like what, you know, hobbies or initiatives have you taken on in a leadership role or something. And I mentioned that I volunteer with the NSA because I stutter. So like all of those are just kind of like examples of how you could organically work advertising your stutter into a job interview. So I always like to just come up with a couple different scenarios in my head and then just see which one pops up. And if none of them do, then I go with the flow. But definitely take advantage of mock interviews, though. They are a phenomenal resource. And I wish I had done them when I was in college because the mock interviews at college, like they always told me like, you sound so nervous. And I was like, well, it's because I stutter. It's not because like I'm actually nervous. But our mock interviews are not judged on like how you sound. So they're a really great resource for people who are looking to get some practice.
Awesome. Thanks, Ariel. So my next question, and I'm going to punt this one over to Nora because you mentioned a little bit in your intro, you know, about how currently in your day-to-day job, you know, you sometimes are working from home. And I know that there are many of us because of COVID that are working remotely. And so I just want to know, what advice would you give to folks who are in the interview process now, especially because so many of, you know, so much of work, including interviews, have moved virtually, whether it's companies wanting to do more phone screening interviews or companies doing interviews via Zoom. So what types of tips or what types of things would you suggest to people?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I actually had an interview. I had an interview yesterday for an internal position, and we had it over teens. And when you're having an interview over the phone or over a video conference, first, I would really try to advocate for a interview where you can see each other on camera, just because I've found for my speech that it helps a lot and takes that pressure off when that person can see me trying to talk, because then they won't interrupt me. Or I disclose my stutter prior to getting the interview going, just so that way they don't assume that I'm like having a technical problem. And then they're like, oh, I can't hear you. Oh, like there's this thing going on. And I'm like, no. It's actually me. And I generally feel that over the course of the pandemic, having the opportunity to have these conversations on camera has been great, actually, because typically, you know, when you're in person in a group or in an interview, there's a lot more opportunity for people to interrupt you, which I've found to be frustrating as a person who stutters. It's just a little bit harder to jump in. And so with having everything online, typically people are on mute. And if they are aware that you have a stutter, they'll typically like wait and really practice their patience prior to responding.
Awesome. Thanks, Nora. I really appreciate that perspective, and I hope that your interview that you had yesterday, I hope that it went well.
Yeah, it was great.
Good to hear.
Thanks.
Okay, so my last question for the panel is, in what ways have you built your confidence in your speaking abilities as a person who stutters? And if you can think of a particular, instance or occasion, I would love to hear this. But, kind of going into the job interview process, of course, we want to present our best selves. And so, in what ways has being a person who stutters, like in what ways has that helped to build up your confidence in your abilities to speak and communicate?
So I'll jump back in here because, oh, my internet says it's unstable. That's okay. I'll just jump back in here just because I got this question, or I posed this in one of the responses I had, just that having a stutter, one, makes you more resilient. You have a toughness where running into challenges isn't going to set you back because you have to confront that every day. The other part of it is that I feel like as people who stutter, we have this unique circumstance where we have our vulnerability on public display, and we can't really choose that, but it shows a lot of courage when you put yourself out there and you talk anyways. And I think that people respond positively to that courage.
Yeah, if you're done, I would also kind of like piggy back off of that. I can't, so in the years that I've been giving tours and programs, at the beginning of all of my tours, and I say like the first thing I say to everybody is that I have a stutter, and so if there's anything that like you guys don't understand or you need me to repeat, like just ask. And in the 6.5 years, a very rough estimate, I've probably told 20,000 people that I have a stutter, and the biggest reward that I get from doing the job I do is the words of encouragement when my tours are finished from the people who are on them. Like, I've gotten like just kind of, as Noah said, that like people, you would be surprised at how many people don't care that you have a stutter, and that they find it so awe-inspiring that like for example, I can give a program to 400 people, and I've had people come up to me and say that like they would wish that their aunts or uncles or brothers could attend my programs, not for the fact that they care about what I'm giving the program on, but just to see that I'm giving such that I'm in a pretty big like public speaking role, and so like kind of the biggest like words of encouragement is, as tough and as difficult as it might be to be somebody who stutters, most people do not care. And if you kind of ignore the fact that you do have a stutter, and just kind of talk, and even if like people are trying to like interrupt you and finish your sentences, like just continue saying what you were hoping to say, that's gonna like that shows people that we as people who stutter can do everything.
I like that. I agree 1,000% with what they both said. And I have a short little story of encouragement. So at my previous job, it was also a cybersecurity startup, and I didn't like that job as much because of the people. But anyways, so essentially we were all told, all of us employees, we had like a quarterly review with the whole company, and the investors were there, and like some pretty high up people were there. And our CEO is like, everyone participate, like I want to see you all like hands raised talking. And I was like, ooh, like as a person who stutters being told that you have to participate is like really, really hard. But I thought, well, that's the only option, because if I don't, I'm going to look bad. So essentially, I got up, participated, asked a question about something that I didn't even care about, but I was just trying to like show participation there. And I definitely was nervous and I stuttered, and you could tell that I stuttered. Shortly after that, one of the investors walks by my desk and he's like, "Can I see you in my office?" And I was like, "Oh my God, like, what did I do?" And I was like, "Oh my God, no." We get in there, he closes the door and he goes, "I just wanted to let you know that I have a lot of respect for you. And I know how hard it was for you to get up there and speak because I stutter too." And I was like, "What?" Like, excuse me? And this was like the highest guy up in the company. And I was the absolute lowest person in the company at that time. And it was like something straight out of like a cheesy Hallmark movie. I just couldn't believe that like that was the reward that I got for choosing to get up there and speak anyways, even though I was so nervous and I definitely stuttered a lot and I was super embarrassed. It was just so rewarding to have like someone tell me that they can relate to it. So moral of that story is you never know how people will respond. Like Kelsey said, most people are like, cool, they don't really care. You might get like some people who have a bad response, but you also may get people who have wonderful responses that you will like cherish and remember for years to come. So yeah, it's a great little story of encouragement that I like to share.
Thank you, Ariel. I would like to also add a few of my things that I do to better represent myself in interview, to have more confidence in speaking. Is that I always, before interview, I assure myself that stuttering is okay. You don't have to blame yourself for this. Actually, this is what happens. So since after a few interviews, I started myself saying that it's okay to stutter. You don't need to think about it. Even if you're stutter, you are unique in your own ways. So you have your strength, which they don't know about. So just keep faith in yourself. And when I say that, it actually reduces my stress, and I see that this positively impacts my interview experience. Besides, I just wanted to add, I'm not sure whether I mentioned it before or whether this is relevant to the question I'm answering to, is that before interview, actually, I try to prepare mentally for a few days. It's like I try to do things which boosts my self-confidence. For example, what I found out that when I do exercise regularly, it somehow boosts my confidence, and it somehow takes away my stress a bit from my speaking abilities. So I try to do that thing that whichever helps me a little to boost my confidence, which in consequence actually reduces my stress, and which in consequence helps to have a better interview experiences. So I thought this will help others to think of. So that's why I wanted to share this.
Awesome. Thanks everybody on the panel. It's been really good to hear about you guys' jobs and what you do, and also your experiences. I think that these types of events are so great for being able to share with the community and to let us know that we aren't alone, right? Like we all go through these experiences as people who stutter, whether it's in our day-to-day lives or in job interviews. So I think that the more we talk about these things, the more we can normalize the experience of stuttering. So thanks everybody for sharing. I'm gonna open up the floor to folks to ask questions. And so if you have a question for a particular panelist, please feel free to pose those. Or, you know, if you're just kind of curious to hear what the panel overall thinks, then please pose those as well. So please use the chat function if you do have a question, and then if so, we'll take you guys off mute and you to share. But just want to give us, I think we've got about 20 or so minutes left, so wanted to be able to allow you guys to also participate and share your experiences and perspectives as well. And in the meantime, while we're doing that, I'm going to share some upcoming events that we have as well. Ariel did pitch our WeStutter Work program, which I know we put some links in the chat box for as well. So we actually have 2 webinars that are coming up. One is going to be not next week, but the week after next. And it's going to be co-led by Derek, who's on the call today, and also Frank, 2 members of our WeStutter Work team. And that's going to be themed public speaking at the workplace for people who stutter. And so the date for that is going to be April the 28th. And so we encourage you guys to attend that one. And then we have another one that is scheduled for May the 26th. And that's going to be stuttering as an advantage in the workplace. And so I think kind of going along the lines of that, you know, of the theme of that last question, you know, how can we look at stuttering as a positive? Like what, you know, good attributes and what things can it help to, you know, bring us and help to make us better. All right, so I think I have babbled on a little long, which I'm usually tend to do. So I'm going to open up the floor. It looks like Courtney has a question. So Courtney, if you'd like to take yourself off mute and feel free to ask your question.
There was somebody before me.
Okay.
Yeah, it was John on Ontiveros.
Okay.
Ontiveros.
Sure.
I hope I'm saying that right.
All right, John, go ahead.
Yep, you got it, Ariel. Thank you very much. And thank you to the panel. Really enjoyed hearing all of your experiences and your input. I think all of you have very interesting jobs. So I have a question, and I wanted to get your perspective on this when it comes to self-disclosure. I'm a huge advocate of self-disclosure for a lot of the reasons that that all of you have shared. And I was at an NSA chapter meeting a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about the topic of self-disclosure, and there was a time in our conversation where we were talking about interviews, and I had shared that I'm a huge advocate of self-disclosure and so on. And a couple of the other people who stutter who were in attendance have shared or they shared an interesting perspective on self-disclosure. I think for a few of us, we kind of all go throughout times in our lives where we really need a certain job, whether it be we just got done with college and we're in debt and we really need to start making money or getting experience in the fields that we want to start a career in. And along with that, there are also individuals who are more prone to stigmas based on their race or their gender, all depending upon the job, you know, that they are applying for. And these individuals, they might see self-disclosure as a bad idea. because one, they really need the other job that they're applying for, and two, once again, they may be more susceptible to other stigmas on top of stuttering, once again, that might pertain to race or to gender. So, and so for people like that might have the opinion that self-disclosure is a bad idea, and I should instead do anything in my power to not stutter during an interview, what kind of advice would you offer to an individual like that? And what is your and just what's your overall opinion on that topic?
This is an interesting one. I know we talk a lot about advertising during the job interview and just like advertising in general, but I think we all have to like remember the whole point of it is to make you yourself more comfortable. And if you're at a point where the idea of advertising and showing your stutter makes you so uncomfortable that you can't be yourself, then it defeats the purpose. Like you can't just go from being covert and being scared to show and talk about your stuttering to being so open about it that you'll tell people about it in like a super important job interview. It's not just like, you know, A to B super quick. So I would say if people, you know, think it's not a good idea for them personally, that's okay. Like they're just not ready yet. Like they don't feel comfortable. And the whole point is to make you feel more comfortable with your stutter. So if you're not, that's okay. I would hope one day that they would feel comfortable enough where they don't need to hide it and they can say they stutter, or they can even just not try to hide their stutter and not care. But if they're not there, then that's okay, you know?
May I join the answer?
Mhm.
So from my perspective, what I'll suggest, what I thought is when I was attending interviews, that sometimes it's not in my control how I talk and how much I will stutter. But what I can do is to stay calm as much as I can. So I try to, in an interview, when it goes bad, I reanalyze it actually what happened, how I behaved, what caused me to increase my stress and resulted in more stutter. So I try to use that experience in my next interview. So for example, when I see I was moving, I think that I was moving a lot in the interview, that because I was stressed, the next interview, I keep that in mind. Okay, I was moving a lot in the last one. I will try to stay more steady this time. Let's see whether it helps. Then I use that experience in the next interview. And I I can't decide what they think and what they're gonna react with my interview, but what I can do is try to improve myself in any way I can. So I will say that although yes, we sometimes we need a job, we have different reasons for that, but we cannot control whether they will select us or not. But what we can do, we can use that experience to improve the next interview. So this is what I will suggest to look into.
Awesome. Thank you too. I'm going to go ahead and let Courtney share her question for the panel. So Courtney, the floor is yours.
All right, well, thank you, panel, for sharing your experiences. I am a person who stutters and a speech therapist, and I have a part-time job working at a school. My original comment and question had to do with that, but I just want to touch on what Carl had said, because I can totally relate to that. Like, I had a job once where I did not disclose. And it was just, it was so hard to go like into work and just put so much energy into hiding it. And when I had a block, I would just become so uncomfortable because I was constantly thinking about what people were thinking. But anyway, at this part-time job that I have at a school, I have to lead a lot of IEP meetings, which are with the parent, the teacher, the principal, and whoever else is a relevant person on the team. I just recently started this job, and every single meeting that I lead or attend, I disclose that I stutter, and it's really, really helpful. And I have not, surprisingly, I have not gotten a single reaction or question or comment, but I still find myself like really worried about what people are thinking, or about kind of people thinking, oh, she's a speech therapist who stutters, you know, that's kind of weird. Like, will she be able to help my my child, right? And so I'm constantly kind of having these thoughts, and I know that a lot of my clients have these thoughts too, kind of like these negative experience, these negative interpretations or negative thoughts and feelings about kind of the workplace in the absence of like overt stigma or like overt questioning. So my question for the panel is like, how do you deal with that kind of like inner critic who, like, even if you do have like a really accepting workplace environment, that those thoughts and feelings can still kind of pop up?
For me, I guess, how, like, absolutely. I think no matter how accepting people are, I mean, I'll be the first to admit, like, I'm super hard on myself. So like, if I'm, giving a really powerful part of the program and I just block and I stutter, and then that part of the program is just ruined, I just kind of like, in my mind, I just say, well, I guess that's okay. It just kind of happened. They know I have a stutter, like, and there's not anything I can do to change that now. Just kind of move on. And so kind of one thing that I've been doing over the years is just kind of telling myself, like, it's fine, it's okay. Like, if I have the power and the ability and the confidence to tell people that I have a stutter, then I kind of need to work on that inner confidence too. And so, but it's definitely not an easy thing to do. And I think it takes years, I mean, years and years and years to get to that point. But I just kind of say, screw it. Yeah.
I would like to piggyback off of something that Carl just said in the chat. Yeah, like, truth be told, like, even if it's not about stuttering, we're gonna all have some kind of like critical part that we're just really hard on ourselves. And like, it is exhausting constantly trying to like think, how can I not be hard on myself? Like, yes, you should try to reduce that negative self-talk and, you know, desensitize and get used to those like bad feelings, but the truth is, like, we're probably at some point in our lives until we die going to be upset with ourselves over something. So if you can just be like, I don't know, that sucked, that made me in a bad mood, and just kind of like acknowledge it and like move on, it's fine. Because I think the more, at least for me, the more work I've put in trying to not be hard on myself, what happens is I end up becoming more hard on myself for being hard on myself. And it's like just a cycle, and it's like pointless. So it's just kind of like, whatever, that happened. But I know that's not the best answer, but that's like my reality.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing, you guys, and thanks for the questions, Courtney and John. All right, so we're gonna close it out with Bobby, and he doesn't have a question, but he has a comment. So Bobby, I will let you take the floor.
All right, thanks, Carl. Hey guys, I just wanted to say that I'm a big advocate for disclosing your stuttering, because not only does it put you at ease, but it also puts the other person at ease. And I've had experiences where, you know, I didn't disclose, and either he didn't really understand, or just like they weren't really sure what was going on. And you know, it's sorry, I'm just having a hard time here. It's I'll tell you what, just come back to me. Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, that's nothing to apologize for.
Yeah.
You know, we've all, I'm sure, have our experiences or our stories that if we started talking about it, we would just, we have been through a lot. And, you know, I think that's a really important perspective to consider, is that, you know, on those days or those times or after a certain event where you think, gosh, that sucked, and you just want to sit in it, you know, you've got to just think back and say, look at all of the things that I've gone through. And I, you know, have thought at one point, like, I don't know how I'm ever going to get past this. This is so hard. But, you know, we constantly keep showing up and doing the things that are really hard. And, you know, and I know that we've talked a lot about, you know, we're our own biggest critics, right? But like just the strength that we have through all of the things we've experienced, through all of the, you know, negative self-talk, through all of the, you know, rejections that we may have had, like we still persevere. And I think that that is so important. And I just want to take the opportunity to thank all of our panelists, Nora, Kelsey, Tanmori, Ariel. It's been really great to hear from you guys and learn about your perspectives. And thank you to the attendees that joined, those who posed questions to the panel. It's been a great event. So thank you all for joining, and I hope you continue to enjoy the virtual 2-day conference. There's been a lot of great planning that's gone into it. So thanks so much, and I hope everyone has a great day. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Carl. And thank
Thank
you
you,
guys
everyone.
for coming.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Have a great
Bye.
one.
Bye. Have a good day, guys.
Bye.
Hi, everyone.